Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, this is the 18th episode of the SuperNova Show. And this is your host, Colton Roberts. We got a good guest tonight. We're going to talk some Schmoedown Free-For-All and Schmoedown Battlefield. And then talk about MCU Phase 1 through 3 with Mr. Aaron. And before anyone says anything, last week I announced that I was going to be getting a tumor removed from my forehead. So yes, this is why this is here. I had that surgery yesterday. They got it all taken out and everything. So that's good. I have an awful headache. And can't exactly, thoughts are harder to come to mind right now. I'm just dealing with all that. Medication is just the best. So just giving you guys an update. And I figure if I throw out, I have a scar on my forehead, then the internet can't do it themselves. So here we go. Well, I'm going to go ahead and bring out Mr. Aaron. How you doing, Aaron?
Good. How are you?
Can't complain. I definitely could if I wanted to. I didn't sleep worth crap last night because anytime I rolled over on my left side, I woke up because it started hurting. And you can't really control yourself in your sleep. But besides that, it's been pretty good. I don't think we've had you on the show since episode 3, maybe. So
I did the one with Kevin briefly when Kevin stepped in for you.
Yeah. Okay. Yep. That's right. Yeah, so that was like episode 14 or something. So how have you been?
Good, yeah. I was going to say, as one of the people who kind of heads this channel, tumor out of the head is a good reason to take a week off, but here you are instead, following all the doctor's orders, staring at that computer screen. So I guess in that aspect, I can't complain. My head's fine.
Yeah, like I was talking to some people earlier, I was like, yeah, I really don't want to go on today. But if I don't do the show, no one else is going to do the show, and the show has to go on. There's no excuse for me to miss a week. I want to do this weekly. So if I'm not going to do it, someone else and no one else is going to do it, it's got to get done. And also, welcome and introductions, everybody. I will totally get that on cue eventually. Yep. But yeah, besides that, everything went well with the surgery. Besides the pain of the aftermath and stuff, it went well. Yep. So, and the rest of my week's been just fine. So
good.
Yes, sir. I know. I'm trying to think. All right, so I have a question. I've only ever heard or read your last name. How do you pronounce your last name?
You try it first.
Okay, so I'm pretty sure it's Connole, but it could totally be the food as well, and I have no idea, so I'll let you go with that.
No, you got it correct.
Okay, because I remember the first time I read it, I was like, cannoli? And I was like, that doesn't sound right. But it could be Italian or something, and then I don't want to...
It's not, no.
Offensive. But,
if I let that offend me, I'd live my whole life offended. For anyone who doesn't know, I live in Orlando, Florida, and I grew up around a lot of Hispanic people, specifically Puerto Rican people, and a lot of them that I've talked to have said, and I don't speak Spanish, so I can't completely verify this, but a lot of them have said that in Spanish, whenever there's a hanging E like that at the end of a word, it's often pronounced, so it would be cannoli. So a lot of them immediately go to that, and it's almost unnatural at times for them to say anything different, so I've just stopped correcting people, between that and my first name becoming a Key and Peele sketch, if I really got that anal over my name, I'd never be happy. So it just kind of is what it is.
Yep, I understand completely. So I normally ask my guests the first time that they've been on in a while, or since they've been on in a while, what you been up to? I know you're helping with TMG a lot. I know you got SchmoeTalks.
Yeah.
But what you got going on? Like, what has happened with SchmoeTalks? I remember I've been on one episode, and I can't for the life of me remember what episode it was or what season we were talking about. But
one of our flashback episodes. Yeah, it's it's chugging along. I had to miss an episode last week because I'm currently working on a project I'm still kind of keeping as secret as I can. And that'll be up hopefully on Monday. But yeah, it's going, slowly but surely, kind of settling in, finding it more now that I've gotten enough members of the community on board and made contacts with certain people. I can start doing more interviews, and those will be announced as well very shortly. So, I have more kind of in the can coming. But yeah, it's just, it's every week. It's just what's up next, get it done, boom, get it up. That's it.
Yep. And I know you also help with TMG's After Dark, right?
Yeah.
So yeah. What you got going on with that, or anything else TMG related, or just anything else you related? Like, I don't know, if whatever you got going on.
Nothing much really personally. Yeah, it's just, work, and then the second job I don't get paid for, which is TMG, But when you enjoy something, it's still work, but at least you like doing it a bit more. I've never bought into the if you like something, it's not work. No, it's still work, but you enjoy doing it. And I like doing this. I like interacting with people. I like finding excuses to speak with people, especially with SchmoeTalks. Especially as I've gotten more and more into it, I find that I enjoy letting people have the opportunity to talk about something they enjoy rather than me just going on and on myself about it. And I'm glad that I've been able to give that opportunity to people. I've had people on the show, one or two people, and actually somebody on the upcoming little special I'm putting together, who are people who have never really done anything in the podcasting YouTube sphere. They've never been on any type of show, and it's just seeing the posts go up, looking for people and interacting, and then getting them on. And it's cool for me to give that experience to someone, and that's kind of what it's all about for me, is giving people a chance who don't really know the way in to kind of start interacting and get into this type of thing if that's what they want to do. And not everyone wants to do it full time, but I'm sure, if you love something that much and there's a community full of people talking about it, then you want an opportunity at some point to do it. And that's the whole point of the show. So I'm glad I'm able to do that for people.
Yeah. Yeah, it's absolutely great. I know you and I have talked a lot about the fact that I'm making my own way across the internet now. I'm going to start my own channel, and I'm sure I will definitely reach out to you and be like, hey, how do you do this? Because I worked on StreamYards for like 30 minutes today trying to figure some stuff out, but man, there's so many options.
Yeah.
Yep. So yeah. So I guess we can go ahead and move on to our Schmoedown stuff. So the free for all. Man, that was quite a show. Like, me and Robert talked about it last week, or maybe it was the week before that. But we thought it was going to be the William Bibiani or Adam Collins who was going to go all the way. But
no,
that did not happen. Yeah, like that was crazy. Like, we had two full board eliminations in the form of William Bibiani eliminating. I'm trying to remember who all he eliminated.
I have the notes here. So he got rid of Ethan Irwin, Adam Collins, Mark Andraco, and Dan Merle.
Yep. And then Jacob London got rid of William Bibiani and Jacoby, and I don't remember who the other two were.
Yeah, it was Bibbs, Jacoby, Liz Shannon Miller, and Griffin Newman was the other one.
Yep. And then, of course, so what did you think of the match? Like, were there any surprises of people that came in or people that you thought were going to come in and did not?
No, I mean, these things are always a bit of a crapshoot. Like at the end of the day, it's the whole thing with this free for all event is it's every single round is essentially a reset. You're going to get 5 questions. Sometimes you'll get 5 questions that you happen to know, and sometimes you'll get 5 questions for films you've never heard of. You know what I mean? And so it's a case in point of, it's a crapshoot, right? Like with Bibiani's elimination, Irwin, Collins, and the horror free for all, and Draco and Merle are all players who, in past free for alls, have gone on considerable runs. And in their first round, for a number of them, their first round, they scored 4 points. Unfortunately, in that round, those 4 points, it was the one time of 2 in the game where 4 points wasn't enough to move on. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's a case of like you got unlucky, and it's all about moments, right? You're unlucky to get caught in that moment. Griffin Newman was on a hot streak. I don't think offhand, and I don't remember the exact numbers, but I don't think there was a round in his 6 rounds where he got less than 4 points per round, and then he got swept off the table. If that hadn't happened in that exact moment, he probably would have kept going because he had 4 points that round. It just so happened that that was the moment where you got effed, right? And so that's what it always is to me. So like I never walk into these with any type of expectation, because it's the point of like, look, these are all 1-point questions. They're all going to be surface level. And so because of that, it's going to be the widest breadth of movies that you've ever seen. You know what I mean? Like, yep. And like I from the beginning of the event, right? And I don't keep track of any of this stuff, so you can believe me if you like, but I was playing along, and up until that first Bibiani sweep, I was playing damn near perfect. I think I maybe missed like 4 questions overall through all the rounds. I would have got 4 points that round because I had no fucking clue what that Bumblebee question was. So even though I would have been playing damn near perfect the entire way thus far, I also would have been gone at that moment. And that's just kind of how it is. You can play as great as you want, but if it's not good enough in that moment, then you're eliminated. Or you can be someone like Ben Bateman, who I think the math is like he only had 1 5-point round the entire time he was on the table. But for 14 straight rounds, he was good enough to not be eliminated. And that's what it's really about. It's not about playing perfect. It's just about staying alive.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. Like it was it was a really good time. Like I watched it on Saturday. Like normally they have their shows on Friday nights, which means we film on Friday nights, which means I always miss a little bit of it. But I got to watch the entire thing, which was great, and I loved it. And yeah, it was not too bad. It was like 3 p.m. Eastern time. It was great.
I will bring this up only because it's and this may be an unpopular opinion, but quite frankly, I don't care. One of the things that people kind of not criticized but kind of noted on with this event is the lack of surprise with it, because there's now the faction build around the league, and they'd said it's 5 players per faction. So it's kind of a thing of like you can start picking and guessing who's going to show up and who's not, and like the biggest surprise you'll get is like Jesse Swift playing for the Quirky Mercs instead of a Perry Nemiroff, right? Where he's only played 1 match and it was Geek. Why would you put him in? And all things considered, he did as damn good as he could have being on that table. You know what I mean? And so it's like, that's really the biggest surprise that you'll get. That was perfectly fine for me. I didn't care. The one surprise gimmick they did, I didn't care about, if I'm being honest. I don't know. I know a lot of people love the whole Zaflirtenflaus thing. I don't fucking care. Like, I like Brett. He seems like a nice guy. The gimmick doesn't work for me, and he's not a good enough trivia player to make it worth it. So it's just like, why are we doing this? Like, if you're going to bring somebody in from the FCL, give it to somebody who's maybe won a match. Make it interesting.
Yeah, that's a weird thing. Like the 40th person was Alex Damon, and I was like, oh, okay, that's very interesting, because I thought to myself, he has this #1 contender shot coming up. I was like, he did very well in like the Champions Bowl last year with normal
He did.
questions, but then he got eliminated with Brett, and I was just like, oh. And there was one surprise that I did not like. Every time the usual suspects logo came up, I was thinking Amaru because he was on the poster. So I was like, that makes sense. And every time it was not him, and I was like, ah. And whenever the next time he's on the show, I'm gonna have to ask him about if it was something going on, because I know like same thing, like every time corruption came up, I was looking for Chance, and now Chance has posted on Twitter that he had something at the same time that was
right. He was just unavailable. Yeah,
he was unavailable. So I wonder if that's the same thing with Amaru.
Well, like if I mean, it's possible that he was unavailable, but like if I look through and attempt to remember who's on the usual suspects, Erwin played. I see that.
Liz played.
I have like a whole list in front of me, so that's what I'm trying to read through. So yeah, so he played. Oh God, who's on each faction? Liz played. Stacey Howard played. Frankie Alvarez played. Is Janine his? No, not this year.
Paige. I don't know how to spell it or pronounce her last name.
Is Paige his? Okay, so then, so thank you. So from that perspective, right, possibly it's a thing of he wasn't available. Those are 5 singles players, one of which, you have 3 experienced players. Frankie won his debut match, and Paige came very, very close to winning hers. So to me, that's more a case of, well, Amaru entered as a main IG competitor with, like, and he said on SchmoeTalks, the interest of going into teams if offered to him. To me, that might just be a case of, well, I have 5 singles players who have shown they're more than capable, so let me give it to them since it'll be a mostly singles event. You know what I mean? Because most of the IG players that entered did not do very well.
I agree.
Like if I look through again, I'm just looking through quickly. Like Saul did terrible. Craig did well, but he's also proficient in singles.
Yeah.
Parker, who's in the fan leagues at least, played both singles, teams, and geek. Didn't play very well, and all love Parker, but you didn't play very well. Swift had one great round, then got eliminated.
Mara
Goddard didn't play well.
Mara played okay.
Mara's the same though. One good round, and then she got eliminated. She scored 4 points in her first round, and then got 1 point in the second round. So there's a pattern here, and then Damon came in and got 2 points in one round, right? So there's a pattern there of the only the players who are mainly IG players did not play as well, only simply because there weren't a lot of IG questions. The categories are in there, but when they're considering there was a category expansion, and the thing I noticed was a couple of years ago with Free For All 3, they named it. They tried naming it something catchy like "Get Your Geek On" or something, but they put all the IG questions into one category that continued to periodically appear. Whereas this year it was all the individualized categories that kept showing up. So there was a Transformers question, a Planet of the Apes question, a Marvel question, a Star Wars question. They were showing up individually. And so when you mix that with all the singles categories, including what they added, it just makes it far less likely to show up. And so to me, that, like, honestly, I would have loved to see him play because I know he can play regular trivia. I've played him in regular trivia. I know he's good, but I wasn't totally shocked that he didn't play because I looked at it and went, yeah, they have at least 5 singles players who are proficient. The ones who I think tossed in IG players are players who may not have had singles players who are tested, right? Like Roxy has a bunch of other singles players, but most of them haven't played. Like she's got the 2 Barstool guys, they've never played. And those are the only other 2 I can think of, right? So she was kind of low on options. So like, okay, Damon played well last year in that one match. Let's give him a chance. Chuck him in, see how he does. So I again, as somebody who, I love Amaru, great dude. I would have loved to see him there. I was not shocked because the way the IG players were performing, it kind of made sense why they weren't there.
Yeah, I guess my entire thing was because I saw him on the poster that I was expecting him to be in the match. So every time the usual suspects thing would come up.
Oh, okay. See, I've learned never to use the poster as a mention for who's there. I'm pretty sure more than once they've put Clark at the forefront of the posters, and she's never played in one, as far as I can remember. So that's my thing is like I've learned over the years. So the posters don't matter. They're going to market who they think is hot, and then it's all about if you're there that day. You know what I mean?
Yep. So the final two were Ben Bateman and Oyama. So what did you think of the winner and all of that?
Yeah, go ahead. You were saying.
Okay, so that last question, I wonder, like, obviously that is in the IG sphere of knowledge. That so I wonder if that had something to do with Bateman not getting it correct or whatever. Like,
well, and again, maybe this is I often don't think into things like this. If anyone here has seen After Dark, Nikki and I go at it all the time because Nikki is someone who thinks about everything from every angle, whereas I look at something, I go, well, if there's an obvious answer, it's probably the obvious answer. Paul talked about how much he loved the movie. First thing Bateman said is, I've never seen it. That's the pretty much right there, because that's such a specific plot detail that you would have to like scour for notes off of like Wikipedia summaries, I think is the only way you could get that without seeing the film. And again, with the free-for-all, you never know what's going to come up. So I just think it's unfortunate luck. You know, if that question had come up in not sudden death, it probably wouldn't have affected him all that much. But it was the last question, so it meant everything.
Yep. All right. So Paul won. He did not announce when he was going to challenge for the title or whatever. Do you have a prediction on which championship or when he's going to cash this bad boy in? Because he has a path to the team's title. And they've already like set up kind of the path to the singles title for Collision. So
well, I don't think he does have a path to the team's title.
Well,
because they lost and they're not in the tournament. So it'll be a minute before they play again.
Yeah.
Because they were playing Shazam on a path to it. I believe it's it was to a title match, actually. They played a number one contenders match and lost. So I don't think they'll get put back into a number one contenders match automatically, because I believe it's the winner of the tournament plays Corruption. So I imagine the next time we'll see them, maybe like if I had to take a shot, or at least like as somebody who's planned stuff, whether it's helping with trivia or when I used to do Movie Battleground, as somebody who's planned these things, I would have Final Exam take on maybe the runner up of the tournament first, and if they beat them, then give them a number one contenders match. But that'll still be a ways off because we'd have to have the tournament happen.
Yeah, which two of the matches from the tournament came out this week. So so they're speeding through that kind of fast. So who knows how long that will take. But like I would love, because we've seen it cashed in on singles, we've seen it cashed in on teams now. I would love to see it cashed in Geek. Like, because that's the one place where he doesn't really have a spot on his way up.
No, sorry, continue. I'm just thinking to myself. Go ahead.
But I think that's the one place where he doesn't have his, like, he'll always be in contention for teams and singles, I would assume. So unless, like, I don't know if they're allowed to give it to someone else. I know if that were to happen, then I have no idea what would what would actually happen. Like, no one in
Yeah.
his faction I can really think of really needs it.
I mean, see, I don't think he'll use it on Geek because the truth of the matter is, I don't think he cares about IG very much. Like, last year he played because I think they were very slim on IG options. Chandru either had the title or was preparing to play Smets. And if I remember, was that no, they entered 2 people, right? I forget who the other person they entered was. But the only other IG player I could think of on their team was Ace, and I don't think they were going to put Ace through that again very quickly. I think that's something where he definitely needed a lot of time to train up if he's going to try IG again ever. So I think it was just more a case of like Paul loves those movies. Maybe he played a match in the fan leagues. I don't know Paul's history as well as some of the others. And so it was just like, yeah, all right, you need a spot in the tournament, throw me in. I don't think I just also, and part of me wonders because we all know there's an element in the Schmoedown of match fixing in terms of where people are getting set up. Like we know that storylines happen because certain matches are put together. Part of me wonders if Christian would ever let an 0-1 competitor challenge for the title.
Yeah.
Because he's 0-1 in IG. That's the truth. I don't know if Christian would ever let that happen because that would, if he happened to luck out and win, that might feel like that would feel like a pretty cheap title win. And the last time they did something like that was when the Shire Wolves beat Brienne's team. And that didn't go over too well at the time with the fans, if you remember.
Oh, yeah.
So I wonder if that's something they'd ever do again.
Yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, maybe Christian's hands off and he'll just say, hey, if you want to do it, go for it. Your death wish. Because I don't think he'd beat Mara. Like the only way I could see him doing IG, quite honestly, is, and again, I wonder if the league would allow this, is if Chandru beats Mara, if you cash in the title shot, you're guaranteed 7 points. Because you'd just be playing your own faction mate. No matter who won,
you get 7 points. Yeah, Christian has already came out and said that that's not possible. Is you cannot cash it in on your faction mate.
Right. Specifically in regards to Oyama's title, he said he cannot do it against his own faction.
Yeah, well, someone asked if before, like a few weeks ago, if, say, Bateman won the free-for-all and decided to challenge Dan, he said he would not be allowed to do that. Okay,
so then, yeah, there's no reason as to why Oyama would want to cash it in on IG, and this is one of the things with this prize. I don't think the prize this year is as fair as it's been in previous years, only because they're making such a big deal of the fashion element. Being the MVP is better than winning it, in my opinion. Because if it's all, like, obviously, personal glory, right? Before it was all personal glory, right? Winner gets a title shot, MVP gets a number 1 contender shot, right? And so you could cash those in, and it's all on you. It's all about your success at that point. But now they're making it about the factions, too. Sure, Oyama could cash it in and win it, and he has a shot at earning 7 points for his faction. But if he loses that match on a 5-pointer and it's a 1-point deficit, that just means he's got absolutely nothing from winning the free-for-all. Whereas Bateman didn't get a title shot, but he walked away with 3 guaranteed points for the faction. Yeah. So to me, it's a bit of a, because they're making such a big emphasis on the factions, it's such a weird way to handle it. Like, I think they should have given, even if it's like 2 points, like give some guaranteed points to the winner so that you can at least say you got something. Because now, like, if he goes for a singles title shot and doesn't win this time, now all of a sudden his performance in the free-for-all and him winning garners nothing.
Yeah, and honestly, I don't see him winning it in teams because he is definitely the stronger of those players. Like, unless he creates a new team with someone and then makes it. because I don't think he can do it with Lon.
I don't know if there's somebody on his faction he could do it with.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of who's all in his faction. I'm trying to.
Let me see if I can find a list. Keep going. I'll try to find a list.
Okay. So Schmoedown Battlefield. It comes on tonight. Of course, when we're releasing this, it's Sunday. So typically, when we try to make predictions, it's like we're going back in time and making these predictions. Just because you're seeing it on Sunday doesn't mean we made the predictions on Sunday, fans out there. So it's Video Drew versus Marisol McKee in the undercard, and then Damon versus Kalinowski for the number one contenders for the IG championship. So what are your thoughts on this show?
I mean, sure. Like in terms of the quality of the matches, and like I said this, I responded to somebody on the Facebook group and I said this, and I stand by it, but I get why they had to do it. The whole point of Battlefield, like this concept of it being a different event from the Throwdown, is it's meant to be two main event matches, not an undercard and a main event. That being said, they had a team's title match that had to get canned at the last second. So I understand why we're ending up with the match we're ending up with, but I wouldn't call this a main event, two main events. I'd call it an undercard and a main event. So just in terms of the event itself, I think it's a little disappointing. In terms of, but again, I say that, and I can't stress this enough, I say that with the caveat of, I understand it's all last minute. Like when it's last minute, it's very difficult to get the biggest thing in the world put together for it. So I totally get it. That said, I mean, so like you want the predictions on the matches?
Yeah, I think the winner of Video Drew and Marisol, from the matches this week, they'll go on to play Janine, and then the winner of that will go.
Okay. Is this what this? Okay, so can I just say quickly, and I want to preface this with, I have all love for Janine as a person. I'm sure she's an incredibly sweet and kind human being, and I don't mean this in any sort of malicious way. Why the fuck is Janine in line for a title shot?
Yeah, I agree.
She's 5-6. She's literally got a negative record. I get that she just won, but why is she in line for a title shot? And this was another thing I got into a discussion on the Facebook page where somebody who's guested on SchmoeTalks, actually, a great guy, Brian Nussbaum, threw out Chance's name. And I said to Chance, again, I know Chance. I got all the love in the world for Chance, but he's 4-4. He needs to win another match or two before he should be considered for a number one contenders match. Not at 4-4. 6-4, sure, but not at 4-4. And then another person came in and commented, well, they gave Janine a road to a number one contenders match. And I said, well, honestly, I haven't seen either of the matches this week, but I said, honestly, I disagree with that just as much. Like, she has a negative record. I get that she's liked in the community. I get that she's won, but she needs to at least have a positive record before they sit there and go, you win one more match and it's a number one contender shot.
Yeah, and then the winner of that goes on at the Collision to play Kevin Smith for a number one contenders match. So It's not even like this match is setting up a match with Janine that is then setting up a match with Kevin Smith,
which they have done before. They did that a couple years ago. It led to a title shot. There was one less step in between, but I believe it was they did Bateman versus Kalinowski, which then led to Snyder versus Kalinowski, which then led to Snyder versus Oyama. So it's not the first time they've done we'll stick two players in, winner plays one, winner plays one, winner plays for a title. I don't get the choice in competitors. So Janine, Video Drew, who is 2-2, again, coming off a 2-win streak, which is great, but she's still 2-2. She should at least be positive before being put in that position. And then the winner plays who?
Yeah, the winner
of this match plays Janine. And then the winner of that match goes on to play Kevin Smith. The only person in this lineup who should even sort of be in consideration is Marisol. And I still think...
Yes, because she's only 1-1,
No,
right?
she'll be 4-1 by the time. If she wins both, she'll be 4-1. That one I can get. But, like, I'm sorry, and maybe this is... I don't mean it to be in any sort of negative way against either competitor, but, like... No, it's just Janine I don't understand. It's just Janine. Because if I think about it, if Drew wins both these matches, she'll be 4-2 on a 4-win streak. So that one does make sense. But Janine at a negative record, only has to win one match. So she'll be 6-6 going up against Kevin Smith, who's 3-0 for a number one contenders match.
Yeah. All right. So I don't want to call like bollocks about stuff, but I think they are just doing this to like get Kevin to face Dan, because as soon as Kevin Smith came in, he wanted to play Dan for the title, and
well, yeah,
I think they're giving him people that it will build up to where he'll have a good match at Collision. They'll be able to get a lot of people to watch Collision because he's on the show, and that if he's able to win, then he'll face Dan.
Right. Yeah. Wait. And that's if Dan wins whoever's ahead of them. Because I know they previously announced there's is it Oyama, Collins? Is it Oyama and Collins? It's Oyama and someone.
Yeah, it's Oyama and Ethan. And then,
thank you.
And then
Roca and Bateman. They play each other, and then they go on to Dan. So they'll probably be first. I imagine they'll do that one first. So if Dan wins that match, then yeah, Dan will play Kevin Smith. I mean, yeah, Kevin Smith is a bit of a weird thing for me. To be fair, I think he is legitimately a good player, right? So it's a case of back in the day, and again, it's even been more examined through doing the flashback episodes. Back in the day when they used to bring celebrities on, they made it a big thing, but they'd make the questions easier. The only celebrity match I've ever seen where I don't think they pulled any punches on the questions was the match where Alex Wolff, I think is his name, the one from Hereditary, or is it his brother? One of the two played John Roca. The kid from Hereditary played John Roca. I think it was Alex Wolff because his brother was the one that's in The Fault in Our Stars. But in that match, I'm pretty sure the way that went was when they reached out to him, I believe they wanted to set him up with a celebrity, but he said, no, give me Roca. I want to play Roca. Even if it's not for anything, I just want to play him for fun. And so they put him up against Roca. And because of that, they pulled no punches on the questions and let him really play. And he did well. Kevin is a legitimately good player because I don't think they're pulling any punches with the questions. The questions are just as difficult as they would be in other matches. I
think sometimes, like especially his match with Brett and his match with Stacy, I think round one were easier because I base this off of how well I do. Typically in a normal match, I get one question right in round one. In his Stacey Howard match, I got 7 out of 8 right.
Well, I think that just means you knew the films better.
Yeah.
Because overall, they're making the round ones easier.
Yeah. That could be it too. But normally, yeah, it's awful. Like I don't even watch the singles matches or the teams matches really. Like I'll watch them in the background while I'm like cooking or doing laundry or something. I'll watch the geek matches. Like, because I actually can play along with that, even though with the new categories, it makes me seem like I can't anymore. But at least I really enjoy those. But yeah, the singles and the teams, I'm like, yeah, I have no shot here. But I like it for like the story and stuff.
Yeah, and like I do like that. They're not pulling any punches with Kevin Smith on the questions. Because that was one of the things. I never enjoyed the celebrity matches because they pulled punches. They made them so much easier. The only celebrity match I can think of offhand that I legitimately enjoyed was when they brought the cast of the Power Rangers in. And that's only because half of them were high as shit. And like you could tell. So it was more just the chaos of what was happening and everyone just kind of having to go with it. Mm-hmm. And so it's enjoyable in that sense. But like, yeah, easy questions. It wasn't a great game per se. I like that they're not holding back on the questions with Kevin Smith.
Yeah.
I don't like that they seem to be holding back on opponents. Like, at the end of the day, he's faced Chris Jericho, who, and I don't give a shit if I offend anybody. I'm not a wrestling fan. Chris Jericho joining was never a thing for me. I didn't care. And quite honestly, I don't know, aside from Kaiser saying consistently he will play, I don't care if he ever plays again, because he's not the best, and he's not good at it. Like, it's very, I don't know what it is. It's just something about it, especially when more and more and more the league is filled with people who really care. It's annoying to see somebody get airtime who doesn't, especially now that they're really harshly limiting the spots, and you have people like someone like Eric Barnes, right, who played the character Warfather, who wasn't the best competitor by all buts and means, but you could see he really cared and he enjoyed being a part of it, right? And that's why he was so angry when he got left out. And I think part of that is because someone like Jericho gets in based off his name, when all I saw in those two matches was a guy who got told he was playing movie trivia when he woke up that morning. Like, to me, it doesn't really work. So I don't care. Like, the fact that Kevin beat him wasn't shocking. And then he played Zaflortenflaus, which, again, I like Brett, but Brett's history of matches is 3 matches. And a lot of people don't remember this, but he played 1 fan league match 8 years ago, when there was like only 1 or 2 fan leagues. He played a fan league match and he lost that. Then he played Bonnie, who is one of the notoriously worst players to ever play in the Schmoedown, and he barely beat her. And then he played Kevin Smith while he was busy doing all of this, So It's like, again, easy match. And again, that's not to take away from Kevin. Kevin is playing the game really, really well because the game isn't changing for him, but they're not giving him the best competition. And again, I like Stacy, but Stacy is a very hot or cold player. You know what I mean? You're either getting a great Stacy or you're getting a very off Stacy. So a better competitor than Brett, no offense, Brett, but not quite there yet, And so, like, again, and it's no disrespect, but like, let's say, someone like let's say if Drew wins and then she gets to Kevin, okay, that's a bit more of a legitimate like, if I'm being honest, I would have put probably, and I don't know who you take, but I would have put an extra player in there and had Janine play someone so that at least whoever's going in has to be coming off of a 3 or 4 win streak. I don't understand how a player with a negative record is getting sat ahead of players who are even or positive. In Marisol's case, she is 2-1.
Yep.
Which doesn't make sense. And again, I feel like a dickhead because this is not the first time I've said something negative about Janine's position in the league. And that's no disrespect to her. I legitimately mean it. She seems like such a nice person. And I'm sure, despite the fact that I have, honestly, the fact that I have put her down to an extent as a player on air, I'm sure she'd still be one of the nicest people in the world to me. So I don't mean it as any offense to her. But the truth of the matter is she's barely a 500 player. So the fact that she won a match and is getting put in this position just does not make sense to me at all.
Yeah, I agree. I want Marisol to beat Drew, but if either way, it's going to be good. And then whoever wins that match is going to beat Janine,
most likely.
Yeah, and then the match at Collision, I think, is going to be good. And if Kevin wins,
I think if Drew or Janine get there, I think Kevin can probably beat them. I think Marisol will be the most difficult test.
Yeah, I agree completely. And I think if Marisol goes on to win at Collision, she'll have the greatest competition for Dan out of all four of them. Because I think Dan will destroy Kevin. I think he'll absolutely destroy Janine, and he'll destroy Video Drew. I think Marisol is the only one who won't absolutely get killed in the match. So
see, I don't think he'll destroy Kevin. I think Marisol or Kevin would give him a game. I really do.
I don't know, because Kevin, I don't think he'd do well in the speed round, and because of some of the things that he does before matches aren't really great for that kind of situation. So
all you do in that situation, and I mean this legitimately, and I wonder if this is a tactic they'd let you get away with, but if it comes to you, answer it. But as long as you hang in there the rest of the game, as long as you can get one or two of them, just keep saying pass. Like the way the rules are set now, you can pass on 8 questions.
Yeah,
and it's not like you're held to one specific question for a specific amount of time, right? So it's not like this is the way that I put it, right? You're not held to a specific question for a specific amount of time, right? So if Kevin Smith takes 60 seconds to answer 6 questions or 5 questions correctly and then pass on one of them, that's 5 points.
Yeah.
Just because the quick recall helps you build points, but it's all about staying in the game. Because Kevin has shown he can play round 3 if he needs to. He did it against Jericho. Again, it's not like Jericho tanked out. He gave him a match there. He did. So I think it'd be risky, but I think he would give him a game at least for the first 3 rounds. Because you said, obviously, yes, weed can affect your recall if you're high, but you also need recall to answer a question in 15 seconds, and Kevin's gone perfect twice. He would have gone wholly perfect twice if he hadn't dicked around with the milk question.
Yeah. All right.
So he's got the recall.
That is very true. I just now I want to see it even more now, because just this
plus
you made a really good point. So
also, and I was gonna say we can move on because we spent a lot of time on this. I also think he'd bring a game against Dan. I don't think he'd show up completely blasted, only because I think he wants it so badly. You'd see a different Kevin Smith.
Yeah, that would be great. And all right, Damon versus Kalinowski. What you think?
I think Kalinowski takes this.
I really won't think. I think it's all according to if Damon gets Star Wars in round 2. I think if he gets something that he likes, Star Wars or Middle Earth, he'll at least bring it to the 5-pointer, and then who knows what will happen there, because you never know what kind of 5-pointer you're going to get. And if he gets anything Star Wars related as his 5-pointer, he's won the match, I will say.
Yeah, I mean this in the best way. I really hope he doesn't get Star Wars, because out of the 4 matches he's won, at least 2 of them he's gotten Star Wars. So it's one of the things where it's like what was the one he just played against Craig, right? When he played against Craig, that wasn't fun for me, at least, to watch, because he landed on Star Wars. I appreciated the thought behind it of, do I want to flex or do I want the easy win? And at the end of the day, you have to be smart. You have to take the easy win. But at the end of the day, the IG Star Wars questions are far easier. So a competitor who can go 5 for 5 in the Star Wars League is going to go 5 for 5 in the IG. It just is what it is. And so that's a little sucky to watch in terms of competitiveness, because at that point, one slip up from Craig puts him behind desperately. Yeah. I hope he doesn't land on it. I really don't. I want to see him. If he wins it, I want to see him earn it. I want to see him get it in something he doesn't know like the back of his hand.
Yeah, I do like the entire storyline that they're doing of him not smiling, and ever since he lost his Star Wars belt, he's down and really serious about it. Even though I think it's really weird because I watch all of his content during the week and he's just so happy-go-lucky, and then when he's in the Schmoedown, he's just like, I lost my belt, and then he does that kind of thing, and I'm like,
yeah,
that happens. Of course, you can't keep your stuff consistent through all the other platforms and your actual career. No one's gonna watch you be sad on your own YouTube channel, and that's career.
And that's everyone. Andrew Guy is not a total cuck on his own YouTube channel. It is what it is.
Yep. But I want Damon to win just to get the win back on Kalinowski. But at the same time, if Kalinowski does win and we see him versus Mara again at Collision, this will be the rubber match. So I'll really like that. So either way, we're good. I'm good with whatever happens. But yeah, you want to go ahead and move on to the MCU?
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So the way this has been working is I've been asking Robert with every phase what your favorite movie in that phase was and what your least favorite movie was.
Okay.
And then also who your favorite hero in that phase was and who your favorite villain in that phase was. And then seeing how it transitioned through the phases. So for an example, in phase 1, Iron Man was my favorite hero. He rolled into phase 2 and it was the same. And then it turned into Spider-Man in phase 3, part 1. That kind of thing. But
okay.
So there's a transition and you only think about the context of the character in that phase. That kind of thing. But
okay.
All right, so phase 1.
Sure.
What's your favorite movie in phase 1 and what's your least favorite movie? And then you can discuss or whatever. Or
yeah. Sorry, give me 1 sec. I want to get this correct. I know it all off memory, but I actually keep ranks of things like these, so I actually have a list.
All right.
Okay. So for phase 1, let me have it correct. Okay. So if we're talking about phase 1, I think far and away, the best film in phase 1 is Iron Man.
Yep.
And the worst film for me is Thor.
Did you say Thor?
Yes.
Okay. So that was my opinion too. And then I rewatched Incredible Hulk for a trivia match in the last week, and I realized how not good that movie is. I haven't probably watched it in 10 years since it's not on anything ever that you can find if it's MCU related, since it's Universal.
I own it, so I have it on Blu-ray.
I had to spend $4 on Amazon just to watch it because that's the only MCU movie that I have really big black spots in. But yeah, so I had to rewatch it, and I'm like, I don't really I don't think I like anything about that movie. And at least there's some parts of Thor that I'm like, haha.
So I should say, overall, and I have an incredibly unpopular opinion I can go on in a second. I think all of phase 1 for the most part is incredibly weak. So like I said, I'm a list kind of guy, and especially because in my own personal life amongst all my friends and stuff, I'm the movie guy. So I'm the person that people come to when they're like, oh, what'd you think about this? And the easiest way for me to kind of concise it is to actually think about it and review it, because that's something I can link to and remember. So in terms of, so I have all 25 because I included the 2 shows they've released in this. All 25 properties in the MCU thus far. Iron Man is up at number 3. And then for the rest of Phase 1, Thor is 23, Iron Man 2 is 22, Hulk is 20, Captain America: The First Avenger is 19, and then the hugely unpopular opinion I have, The Avengers is 17. Like, none of them break my top 15.
Okay. Very interesting. Yeah.
So overall, to me, like, Iron Man is a genius level film, and especially when you know the history of its making and the fact that it's basically one of the only good films that's ever shot without a script. Usually when you're shooting and writing your scenes the same day, the movie doesn't turn out good. Somehow they made it work with this film. And funny enough, these same writers would be in this exact same position like 10 years later, and that movie would end up sucking. Men in Black International, for those who don't want to know. And same writers, same position. They were having to write scenes day of, and that movie sucked. So the fact that Iron Man somehow worked out was just this magical coming together of all these elements. I don't think any of the films match up. So for me, the reason Thor's that low, I'm not honestly a huge fan of any of the Thor films, and that includes Ragnarok for its own separate reasons. To me, Thor is just very boring through a lot of the movie. Like, I think the stuff on Asgard and the Shakespearean attempt of doing Asgard with Kenneth Branagh is the most interesting interpretation we've seen of Asgard. But then he goes to Earth and it becomes this just generic fish out of water story. Natalie Portman has next to no character. Kat Dennings has next to no character. Eric Selvig is basically not a character. They're all just people that are there to be with Thor, and to call out all the things he doesn't recognize. There's the odd funny moment here or there, but most of it for me doesn't quite work. Also because I think Hemsworth was so early in his career, he hadn't quite figured out comedy yet. He'd never done comedy till that point. Because if anyone... Hemsworth history, before he got into film, he was on an Australian soap opera, and those almost never include comedy. So, it just wasn't in his forte yet, and I certainly think he has gotten a lot funnier over the years. He's actually really figured it out. It just doesn't work in this film for me. A lot of it does not work. I think all 3 villains this film has are boring as shit. Laufey is a terrible character. The Destroyer is such a weak, like, it's not a character even, right? By design, it's a machine, but it's just such a boring antagonist. And then I don't think Loki's all that great a villain. I think he's a good character, but I think he's at his worst and least interesting when he was a villain, and this is the worst of it, in my opinion. Like, I just don't... None of it works for me.
Okay. So in this phase, who is your favorite hero and who is your favorite villain?
I guess by default, Iron Man and Ironmonger.
Oh, okay.
I guess by default. Yeah, because, like, I don't mind the Incredible Hulk. Like, realistically, for me, everything on my list from Thor Ragnarok and up is stuff that I all do like. It's just, when you have that many properties, at some point you have to start putting stuff towards the bottom of the list. But yeah, like, it just... the writing just wasn't here in this phase. So most of the characters aren't really fleshed out, and that includes the villains, right? And to be fair, Ironmonger is only an interesting villain because I think Jeff Bridges does a great job. But, like, Tim Roth's Emil Blonsky, there's nothing to him. Mickey Rourke, woefully miscast in Iron Man 2. There's nothing to him. Like I just said, I'm not a huge fan of Loki and Thor. Red Skull is fine. And again, not a huge fan of Loki as a villain, so he doesn't really work in Avengers for me either. Quite honestly, I found Hawkeye a more intimidating villain than I found Loki any kind of intimidating. So I just one of the things that the MCU has gotten better at over the years is the writing, and specifically the complexity within their characters. And it took them a very long time to get good at writing villains. And phase 1 and 2 suffer from that horrendously. It's not really till phase 3 they start kicking in with great villains. And so, yeah, just by the nature of the performance, I would say Jeff Bridges and Iron Man.
All right, so Phase 2, and essentially same questions. Which is your favorite movie in it? Which is your least favorite? And then favorite villain and favorite hero, and then how that transition happens, if it changes hero-wise.
So funny enough, Phase 2 contains my favorite and least favorite film overall in the MCU. Best film of that phase, Captain America: The Winter Soldier. I think it's the best film in the MCU. I think it's the most intriguing film in the MCU. Worst film, Thor: The Dark World. That movie is the only film out of 22 movies I would legitimately say I never need to see again. Captain Marvel, spoiler alert, is number 24. So it's not like I think that much higher of it. But if one of my friends said to me, hey, want to watch Captain Marvel? Like, sure, okay, I can put it on in the background. There's stuff to enjoy in that. Thor: The Dark World is just so fucking boring. There's nothing in that movie that's interesting at all. And the problem is, even the things that are slightly interesting are just simply for manipulation. Like, I think one of the few well-written characters in that film is Frigga, Thor's mother. Unfortunately, she doesn't begin speaking until 5 minutes before her death. All of her character is just lumped right in there, and then she gets killed. Whereas, you've had a movie and a half with her before this, and she's done jack fucking shit. But now you want to give her a character. And I saw the movie years ago, but when I did a rewatch last year, and that's where a lot of these fresher rankings came from. When I was watching it, immediately when she became of importance, I was like, so she's dead in 5 minutes, because you've done nothing with her over a movie and a half. And I know that she does die. So it's coming very quickly. And what do you know? It happens very quickly after that. So yeah, easily the worst film. The only movie I don't think I ever need to rewatch again. I hardly watch movies for trivia anyways, but if I ever miss a Thor: The Dark World question, I'm okay. I know Malekith is the villain. That's all I need to know. Speaking of which, boring fucking villain too.
Yeah,
so
and, there's so many things wrong with that. Like, they burnt the wrong side of his face from the side that it is in the comics, which that like my least favorite film of the phase is Iron Man 3, and it's purely because of the Mandarin. Like,
I love Iron Man 3.
I went on an entire rant 2 weeks ago about it. Like, I went full screen on me because I'm a huge comics person. So
okay, fair enough.
In the marketing, they're like painting the Mandarin is coming, and then in the movie it's just a huge misdirect, and I hated it. I'm like, but hopefully, Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings will redeem that for me, and then I'll feel better about all of that. I still won't feel super better about Iron Man 3, but I'll feel better about the Mandarin.
Well, as we covered the other night on After Dark, one of the news stories was how the producer came out and said, listen, comic fans, this still isn't completely your classic Mandarin, so don't go in thinking that. So there you go. There's your temperament. Because the character from conception, they're calling it the Mandarin, but from conception, the character was a mix of the Mandarin and Fu Manchu. So it was never even the Mandarin from conception. It was an amalgamation of things. I love Iron Man 3. It's in my top 10. I fucking love that movie. I love it. And I'm somebody who I didn't grow up with comics, and I've always maintained this. I understand if you're a Mandarin fan why you don't like that twist. I fucking love it. I think it's brilliant. It's one of the best, most interesting things I think they've ever done in the MCU. Because while he was cool and he was intimidating, again, it's another character where there's really nothing there outside of Ben Kingsley puts on a Benedict Cumberbatch-esque American accent, stares at the camera, and just says intimidating things. And so I in my head, when I was watching it, I was just thinking, okay, so this is going to go nowhere. And then, to be fair, it would have gone over better if Aldrich Killian was a better written villain. I still don't think they hit the nail on the head there completely either. But I love the twist. Like, the thing that the world is scared of is this drunk dude watching football matches. Like, I love it. I love everything about it, because in that moment, it's the complete disarmament of everyone. It's a disarmament for the characters in the film, and it's a disarmament for the audience. And I love that they played on expectation like that. I get why comic fans don't like it. I do. But as someone who doesn't have that attachment to comics, I love that this, to me, was them saying, we don't have to copy the comics. We can do whatever we like, however we like to do it. And I love that, because I think creative license is the number one thing these films need to have. I don't think you should have to be beholden to your source material if you think you can attempt to improve it in some way.
Okay. So, favorite hero and favorite villain?
I mean, I'm the worst person to ask these questions to, because I don't think about things like this. I guess, because I love the movie so much, I would probably say Captain America. I think it's an incredible film. I think he's finally well written in that film. I don't think the writing in the first Avenger is terrible, but it's kind of what people wanted Zack Snyder's Man of Steel to be. He is the ultimate Boy Scout, which I get is what his character is, but I love the head flip they do with him of, oh, let's take your perfect little Boy Scout and stick him in a world where, nothing's really legit. Like, but before we went live, I was watching a great film that was nominated for Oscars this year, Promising Young Woman. And that's a film that kind of, in an obviously very different way, it's talking about the same kind of thing of like, something can smile at you, shake your hand, give you a hug, and kiss you on the lip, but doesn't mean it's good. It can still be evil. And I like that this movie is playing with that on a very foundational core for Steve Rogers. And I do think they write his handling of it very well, because as you're going through all of this, it's basically the internal destruction of everything he was told to believe in and follow. So I enjoy that. So I'd probably go with him. Villain, maybe Ultron, because he was entertaining, or Winter Soldier, because he was silentless, but at least more entertaining than the Destroyer and Thor. Again, another phase where I don't think the villains are very well written.
No, I agree. Like, I like all the Hydra stuff. And
it's very well, but there's no like one concise villain. Like, Robert Redford's playing Robert Redford. He's great, but he's not the best villain. Sebastian Stan's very intimidating as the Winter Soldier, but there's not a lot of character there. Like, Ultron to me is the only one that brings any character. Like, maybe the second closest would be Corey Stoll and Ant-Man, and even then, that's kind of just, I'm jealous, and now I'm crazy. Like, that's his character development, is he goes from jealous to crazy, so it's like, yeah.
Yep. Yeah, I agree. All right, so phase 3. Now, me and Robert have been splitting them up, since I'm going to let you talk about this,
Okay.
You can talk about the entire phase if you want to.
How'd you split it up, just for sake of curiosity?
We split it up, Civil War to Black Panther, and then this week we were going to do Infinity War to Far From Home. So those were the 2 splits, because it would be 6 movies and then 5 movies. So.
Okay. So then how would I... all right, so Civil War to Black Panther, you said?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Okay. So then out of that set, my favorite film would be Civil War. And my least favorite would be Thor Ragnarok. Yeah. And again, this is something I've got into on After Dark with those guys. I'm not the biggest fan of Thor Ragnarok. I love Taika Waititi. And believe it or not, because they kind of do very similar things, I absolutely fucking love Jojo Rabbit. But I, in a weird way, think he needed to make Thor Ragnarok he had to experiment with Thor Ragnarok to figure out how to do it with Jojo Rabbit. Because my biggest problem with Thor Ragnarok is that is a film that is filled with these incredibly dramatic moments. And while I do think Chris Hemsworth is funny in it, I think it's incredibly ironic that after 2 of the most dour and dreary films in the MCU, in which nothing major really happens, we get a film in which everything major happens, but everybody's got a joke to crack, right? And like to me, the pinnacle of that is when they're on the ship escaping, and they're watching Surtur just wreck shop to Asgard. And I forget what the line is at this point, but Korg makes a joke where he goes, "Well, at least that's still standing." Oh, and it's like, really? Like, this should be, and I should be emotionally invested in this. And instead, you're pulling me out with a joke that honestly is not even particularly all that funny. The movie does have very funny moments in it, and I will, since I'm ripping on them, I will credit a lot of it to Taika Waititi, because I do think through most of the film, Korg is a very funny character that works. But it always feels like in these harsh moments where you should be feeling the impact of it, there's this witty, snippy dialogue, or they're speeding up to get into the next scene.
Yeah, and also, like, that movie, you know, one of the good moments from last year's trivia of what are the names of his two guns?
Yeah. I should say that has nothing to do with my opinion on the film. I should say that. I did rewatch it shortly after, but yeah, that was a fucking horrible moment.
Yeah, your facepalm would be like, "Oh, that's the name of his guns." That's so funny. Like,
I legitimately, I saw the film once, and it's one of those things where, like, usually I'll see an MCU movie at least twice in theaters because I really do enjoy them. Ragnarok, I was just so disarmed by that I never went back and saw it again, and I hadn't seen it since I saw it in theaters, you know, a couple years ago. And to be fair, I used to think lower of it. Like, upon rewatching it, I was like, okay, there is more that works about this than I remembered. Still not enough to raise it any higher than 21st of 25, but I do think better of it. Yeah, but that was one of those moments where, like, I had nothing on that film, and I said it after the match. I was in the middle of doing a rewatch, and I was like one film away from getting to it. But, like, I don't know what it is, just something about the way the question was worded. It didn't trigger the guns. And then it wasn't until Jacob said the quote, I was like, oh, yeah, fuck, I remember that. Still probably wouldn't have got it right. But
yeah, man, that match was a good time.
19. For me, I lost.
Yeah, I won. That's why I think it's good. But yeah, like, so who's your favorite hero in this part of the phase, and then who's your favorite villain?
These are great questions for people that really think about these answers, I must say. I can only imagine the better conversation that's had when somebody else is on the show. I will say straight up, I think one of the best villains of the MCU is Zemo, so I'd probably go with that for villain. From minute one, I liked him, and it was something that, like, I just don't think it clicked with people because he wasn't this big, bad, I'm going to fight you type of villain. But until Thanos, he was the only villain that ever won. He wanted, which is why I think his role, and I've had some friends, like, talking in personal, where they're like, I don't get why he was a bad guy and now he's, like, playing the good guy, essentially. And I'm like, well, it's because he won. He had two purposes: split the Avengers as revenge for getting my family killed, which, fair, they did smash your country to bits, and destroy the super soldiers so that people like this are less likely to exist. And he did that. He very clearly drove a rift through the Avengers. He even broke the back of one of them, and he murdered all the super soldiers. You know, the only two left at that moment were Bucky and Steve, who were the only two super soldiers he had any kind of respect for. So he was okay with that. He won. He got everything he needed. And yep. I think that's a very underrated element when you're looking at villains. He was well written. Everything about him made sense. He didn't need to push his way around in order to win. He was very meticulous about it. And in the end, he got exactly what he wanted. So from that point on, it doesn't really matter, you know? And that's why I like I like, and to be fair, I think Falcon and Winter Soldier even helps that point further because it shows that he wasn't some evil supervillain. He was just a man who had a goal and he was determined. Because at the end of the day, he didn't have beef directly with Sam or Bucky, really. So when they came to him and said, hey, more super soldiers exist, want to go kill them? He was like, yeah, okay. I may have beat you guys before, but I'll work with you now because it's in my favor. And I like that from him. I like that he doesn't have to be this, weapon wielding, kind of big, bulky villain, someone to fight. I like that he's more cunning and he's kind of behind the scenes a little more. Just a really interesting character. And really, the first time in the MCU, I thought they really nailed a villain's writing.
Yeah, actually, and I still think, after everything, I think he's the best villain that they've ever had, in my opinion. And he's
second. I'd say Thanos is better written, but he's second for me.
Yeah, Thanos in Infinity War, I think, is better written, and then there's Thanos in Endgame, which I don't like. But that's a totally just different discussion for another time. But yeah, and all right, so hero.
I don't know, Captain America, because he led the movie I like the best.
Okay, good. Yeah. Me and Robert were talking about it. I was like, I think mine is probably Black Panther, but I don't know if, since I recently rewatched all the movies with my kids, I don't know if now I think he's the best character because he passed. So my opinion on that is a little colored. So I
think he's really well written in Civil War. I actually think, and I think it's still a good performance, but I think from an overall perspective of role, I actually think he's one of the weakest parts of Black Panther. Like, I think there are a lot of his side characters are better written than him. It's almost like he becomes more the vehicle the movie's rolling through than he is anything important to the plot. I don't know if that's the best way to word that to kind of get what I'm saying. But whereas in Civil War, I thought the emotionality of his arc of, sure, I'll side with you, but I don't have time for your silly games. I'm here for revenge. And I thought that fueled the character in such a way where it made him a very intriguing character. And again, that's not to say he was done terribly in Black Panther either. That movie's also in my top 10 of the MCU. But I thought he was better written in Civil War.
Yeah. All right. So part 2 of MCU Phase 3. So Infinity War through Far From Home. Same questions.
Okay.
And then we'll call it a day.
Best film easily, Endgame. I love it. There's only 2 times in a theater that I've only ever had 2 experiences in a theater where the audience was so sucked in and electric that you could feel it, and that's The Force Awakens and Endgame, and that definitely does play a lot into it because I do take experience for something. Experience in terms of how the film is controlling the audience. Like, I'm not going to dock a film because a baby cried in the theater. I should clarify that. But, like, that film had such a grip on the audience that you could feel the energy flowing through the room. And especially in that final scene, like, very few movies have every single one of its moments hit. And that one was one of them where every single moment hit in a way that the audience just had this insane visceral reaction to it. I do really like Infinity War as well. But I think overall Endgame, and obviously it's a 2-part thing, but for me, I like the time travel element. I think it's a really rather interesting way to kind of use the quantum realm and all that stuff that they've been separately doing in Ant-Man. It was a cool way to kind of bring it in. I think the combo of characters works really well. I like that it is kind of a film dedicated to the 6, and then the kind of few side characters they chose to keep, Nebula, Ant-Man, Rocket, they're not just there for no reason. They're there because they also have arcs that you can wrap in and conclude with this movie, so it all works very congruently with the universe. Yeah, I think it's an incredible film. Least favorite, Ant-Man and the Wasp, but I don't think it's a bad film at all.
Oh, so you think that's even worse than Captain Marvel?
Oh, right, I forgot. Yeah, Captain Marvel. Never mind.
Okay. Yeah, I was
Sorry,
like,
I forgot that was there for a sec. Yeah, Captain Marvel. I don't think it's terrible. I think it's a case of a lot of my issues with it are in the direction. I find what I found with that film the few times I've rewatched it is it's the only actors who are bringing anything are the characters who just naturally have personality to them. The performances that are a little more strict back, the direction's just not there to get the dramatic performances out of them. Like, Nick Fury works because at this point Nick Fury is all oozing on Sam Jackson's charisma. I don't think Mendelsohn worked as the villain in this when he was the villain for the first half. When the flip happens and Talos gets to have personality and Mendelsohn, who does have comedic chops, gets to do something with it, then he becomes rather entertaining. Vice versa, I think Jude Law worked way better before he became the overly serious villain because he got to show charisma. Everyone in this film who's important to the plot is stern-faced and just staring at the camera. And I just don't think Anna Fleck and Ryan Bowden at this point in their career are good enough directors to get that out of them, because I think their best film is it's an indie movie called Mississippi Grind. It has Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn in it. And that movie is very similar, where it has very, very few dramatic beats in it. A lot of it is very comedic. And that's why that film works so well, because it's Ryan Reynolds and Ben Mendelsohn, two men with charisma that can ooze the comedy out. And then, it takes up so much of the film that anything that drags a little bit, you're going to get through because you're coming back to a joke. Whereas with this, it was kind of the inverse. So much of it is so overly serious that when the comedy finally steps in, that is handled very well because the people doing it know what they're doing. I mean, even I thought Clark Gregg was very wooden in this, and he's one of the highlights of Phase 1. I think every time he shows up in Phase 1, he does a great job. He was stiff as shit in this film. Like, it's just all in the direction.
all right. So, favorite hero and favorite villain.
Thanos for villain again. He's one of the few really, really well written characters. I gotta say though, for the other one, just because I never got a chance to mention it, shout out to Michael B. Jordan as Killmonger. I think him, Zemo, and Thanos are far and away the three best written villains the MCU's ever had. Hero, I don't know, take your pick. They're all written well. Not Captain Marvel. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe Iron Man because he gets the most self-importance put on him. I don't know. I feel bad. I feel like I'm not delivering. I've seriously never really thought about like heroes and stuff like that. I kind of just analyze films as films, not like pieces like that. Maybe it's because I don't have the comic history, like people like yourself or maybe Robert. I don't know how deep his comic love and history is. Maybe because you guys grew up with these characters, you approach it in a different way from me. Maybe that's what it is. But I've just never thought analytically, like analyzing what's my favorite character. I don't know. It's just something my mind doesn't go to. I'm sorry. I wish I could deliver better answers.
Oh no, that's great. I mean, like everyone is not going to be the same. Like I definitely analyze how characters move and flow through their movies, which is the part where, like in Iron Man 3, I really like that he destroys the suits, and then there's nowhere that explains until Civil War happens why he is in a suit in Age of Ultron. Like in Civil War in the conference room, he's like, yeah, I can't stop. I blew up the suits, and then we had to chase down Hydra, and I just can't stop myself. And then I lost Pepper because of it. And so, like, for me, that was kind of like a backtrack. Like, they didn't want to have not have Iron Man in an Avengers movie where they already didn't have Iron Man in most of the Iron Man 3 movie. So, like,
and to be fair, that is one of my few criticisms with Iron Man 3. I do blame that on Iron Man 3 more than I do on Avengers, because at the end of the day, you're still going to have, when he's been that much of a centerfold to this point, you're not losing Iron Man after just the first Avengers film. So I don't think they should have ever, even if it's meant to be symbolic, I don't think they should have ever let Shane Black do it the way he did. But in terms of that, it was one of those things where, like, at least for me, and again, I guess maybe it's just the way I approach it, like, I didn't need the explanation because I just kind of got it. Like, it's just like, yeah, okay. The guy's shown in the past, he's absolutely addicted to this. He's addicted to the adrenaline of it. So, and he's also terrible at keeping his promises. I mean, his and Pepper's relationship falls apart how many times over the course of 3 films? So it's like, okay, yeah, makes sense. Dude blew up the suits, couldn't hang, put the suit back on. All right.
Yeah, and like I'm sure some of that also had like contract negotiations, because I think after Iron Man 3 he was done, and then they had to re-sign him for Avengers 2. So they probably wrote him blowing up the suits so that if he decided not to come back, there's a reason why he's not in Avengers 2. And then he signed on, and they're like, well, we're not going to have Tony not in the suit. So there's probably outside of the universe explanations for these things, but
potentially, yeah.
Yeah.
I don't remember if it was for Avengers 2 he had to re-sign or Civil War. Because I know Civil War they had to re-sign him, but I don't remember if there was another re-signing in the middle.
Yep. But all right.
They also kind of have him walk away at the end of Age of Ultron. They kind of make reference that he's like walking away.
Yep.
So
all right. So that's the show. So Aaron, I always ask if my cast has anything they need to plug or anything, and I know we talked kind of about it at the beginning of the show, all your stuff. But in case you want to plug your like social media or any of your other shows or anything like that, go ahead.
Yeah, just as a whole, if you're watching this and you're not subscribed, please subscribe to TMG Entertainment. This is the channel that this is on. We have multiple pieces of content going up all the time. A little less more recently, just because it's been difficult with our jobs for us to stay on it. But Matt and I try and do trailer reactions and movie reviews as much as humanly possible. On top of that, we also have multiple podcasts that go live every week. Obviously, this is up at noon on Sunday. Tomorrow at 7 p.m. EST, there's a SchmoeTalks episode going up. That's every Monday at 7 p.m. EST. Every Tuesday afternoon, we have Cancel This Show. That is Alan Shepard and Matt Beer talking about politics for roughly an hour in an attempt to see how many people they can possibly piss off. It's a lot of fun if you can. It's a lot of fun if you can manage yourself. You know, if you get a little too riled up, then maybe the casual politics isn't for you. But if you can sit back and enjoy that, it's certainly entertaining to kind of hear them debate back and forth. And then every Saturday we have After Dark. That's at 9 p.m. EST. That is our kind of weekly hangout show. We go over all the latest in movie news and kind of discuss it casually as we go through.
All right. And of course, like I say every week, if you guys want to follow me on Twitter at ColtonRoberts8, or you can follow the show at SuperNova_show. And like I announced last week, starting in June, I am creating my own channel. I have to get all the logistics done with that, and film stuff to release to you guys, and eventually I'll have a link somewhere. But yeah, this was good. Thank you so much for coming on, Aaron. I really appreciate it. And yeah, I think that's it. I don't know.